On Zombie Reddit, today's story is...
My sister sent naked photos to my husband, but she never imagined what would happen on his 35th birthday. My mother's plan failed. My mother thinks that I, at 26, am not good enough for my husband Arthur, 34, and she is trying to sell my younger sister Mercy, 24, to him. According to her, Mercy would be a better wife for him. And why is that? Because supposedly she knows how to deal with men like him. By treat, she means get all the money she can out of them, something I never do, which is why she calls me useless. Apparently I'm useless because I don't squander my husband's money. This is nothing new. She's always labeled me useless, strange, fat, and many other hurtful words. My mother never really loved me, while she adored my sister, and I was the invisible daughter, the one who never met her impossible standards of beauty. I inherited my father's broad shoulders and strong build, while Mercy was practically a copy of my mother, thin, fragile, and self-interested. It wasn't long before my sister joined my mother in her taunts towards me. My father was the only one who defended me, the only one who really saw me as his daughter. Whenever they ridiculed me or laughed at me, Dad would step in, argue with my mother, and scold Mercy. Unfortunately, he died in an accident when I was just 13 years old. With his death, I not only lost my father, but also my best friend and my greatest protector. This opened the door for my mother's cruelty to intensify. She even blamed me for his death, as he had left the house in a rage after a horrible argument with her, when she was trying to force me not to eat in order to lose weight. At my father's funeral, my mother didn't even hug me. I felt like a complete orphan that day. After that, she made it very clear that she couldn't support me for free, so I had to do all the housework so that she could work 2 jobs and feed us. I understood I had to take on responsibilities, but what about Mercy? She was 11 years old and perfectly capable of washing and cleaning her own dishes. But according to my mother, she was too fragile a child who could get hurt in the kitchen, as if it were a dangerous place full of lurking dangers. My father was no longer around, nobody could set limits for her, so I had to put up with everything. When she fed me, she made no effort to hide her contempt and constantly reminded me that I was a disappointment. She criticized absolutely everything about me: my weight, my posture, the way I spoke, even how I ate. According to her, I didn't look feminine at all. Mercy received all the praise, and my mother made a special effort to dress her and make sure she looked good. She got the dresses she wanted because she could show them off, in my mother's words, while I got huge t-shirts and pants from the annual sales. I couldn't complain, because she always replied, "Why spend money on someone who is overweight if it won't fit her anyway? Nothing fits you, so it's pointless." I was supposed to take care of the house completely, while Mercy was encouraged to socialize and enjoy life. She started going out with boys from the age of 13, while I didn't find anyone I was interested in until I was 19. My mother smiled proudly every time Mercy came home and told her she had received her 3rd proposal of the month, or her 5th, or whatever the number was. And when she brought gifts from her boyfriends, my mother would hug her and tell her how lucky she was to have such a beautiful daughter. Mercy's beauty became my mother's ticket to luxury. By the time my sister was 16, she was already dating college students and young professionals who showered her with expensive gifts, took her to expensive restaurants, and gave her money without problem. My mother was not ashamed to take her share and encouraged Mercy to use her charms to get whatever she wanted. She even got pregnant at the age of 17. My mother found out in time and solved the problem. Although they kept it a secret, it is something that the whole family knows but is not openly mentioned, a secret that neither of them admits. Despite this, my mother was proud of Mercy's ability to get financial benefits from men. On the other hand, I was ridiculed for not being able to do the same. They would say to me, "You're useless. No man will ever want you." The more they mistreated me, the more determined I was to escape. When I was only 15, I started working in a cafe. That saved me from being free labor at home. My mother didn't care as long as I wasn't a burden to her and I bought my own food. I saved every penny and counted the days until I could leave. Those 4 years at home after my father's death were a real nightmare, until I finally left at 17. It was in that cafe where I met Arthur, my current husband. He was new to the country and had no friends. He was studying at university and working part-time at the cafe. I helped him to adapt to the job and to the city. We became friends and started going out after work. He invited me to his university residence, and I was impressed to see how intelligent the people were and how immense the world was. He helped me discover my passion for cooking. He asked the owner of the cafe to give me a chance to bake, and that's how I gradually began to learn how to prepare dishes professionally. At university, Arthur got a well-paid job as a manager at a 5-star hotel. We kept in touch. I saved money from my job and enrolled in a culinary school. It was more than I had ever dreamed of, because my only intention in taking that job in the cafeteria was to be able to leave home one day. My mother and Mercy had no idea what I was doing. They thought I was just a cook, since I posted photos of the dishes I prepared. They didn't know how much I earned. They assumed I could barely make ends meet. All the better for me, that way they didn't ask me for money. While Mercy went from one boyfriend to another, leaving them penniless, and my mother enjoyed the benefits, I was building a life completely away from them. I didn't keep in touch with them. Only once a year did my mother call, and on one of those calls she asked me if I was dating anyone. I told her yes, that I was dating my old coworker from the cafe. They assumed he was some worker with financial problems, maybe a waiter, and they laughed at the idea that I could get someone worthwhile, so I let them believe what they wanted. It was best to keep a low profile with regard to them. Arthur and I got married 2 years ago after a 5-year relationship. I invited them to the wedding as simple guests. The first surprise came when they saw the wedding venue. My mother sent me multiple messages, asking how I could afford such a place. Then she assumed I was spending all my savings on it. She wrote to me, "It seems that someone is so excited about having gotten a boy to say yes to her, that she is emptying her bank account with the wedding." I let it go, because it made her surprise even more satisfying when they saw Arthur and his family. Arthur is English, and his family is well off, something I only discovered after years of the relationship. My mother's jaw dropped to the floor, and her eyes sparkled as if she had won the lottery, while Mercy became bitter and was in a bad mood the whole time. She pulled me aside and asked, "Did you get her pregnant?" I was completely taken aback by her question and just stared at her. Those were her tactics, not mine. She continued, "What? Let's face it, you couldn't get this man without some trick. What did you do? Tell me, did you record him doing something compromising and blackmail him?" I laughed so much that I called Arthur and said, "My sister wants to know how I tricked you into marrying me. She thinks I blackmailed you." He laughed out loud and replied, "You want a trick? How about trying to love and care for your partner?" She dropped the subject, saying she was just joking with me. After the wedding, my mother approached me saying she wanted to rebuild our relationship. She organized several meetings with me, but I didn't attend any of them. Until one day she showed up at our house unannounced. She was impressed by the decoration and the luxuries, but she was still disappointed to see me in my baggy t-shirt and my casual pants. She said to me, "Your husband is well off. Why don't you wear nice clothes? Why don't you let him spoil you?" I replied, "I don't need him to support me. I can support myself." She wasn't interested in asking about my job, and instead, she was surprised to learn that I was still working despite being married to him. She suggested that I take on a secondary role, that I enjoy myself and let my husband support me. I said, "Thanks for the advice, but I'm not interested." She got angry and blurted out, "That's why I've always called you stupid. You're wasting your luck by not using it properly. This is gold. You should take advantage and let him support you. That's what they're for." I ignored her. But she exploded and said to me, "If you would only think a little bit about me, you could help me out financially. But no, you only think about your absurd pride." She tried to manipulate me into taking money from my husband and giving her a share. I replied firmly, "I am not Mercy. Don't expect that kind of behavior from me." She stormed out, shouting, "You don't deserve to be Arthur's wife. My daughter would make a better wife for him." Since then, she has become more bitter. At first, I ignored it, thinking it was just her usual nonsense, but now I feel that this goes beyond mere words. A month ago, Mercy showed up at Arthur's office in the late afternoon, just when he usually leaves. She made the excuse that she had a flat tire near her work, and that's why she needed a ride. He told her he would be working late. She insisted that he could wait. He was wearing a dress with a very high slit, and a plunging neckline, as if he'd come from a bar. He asked her for an Uber and said, "Your car is here." She stared at him, and when he added, "Don't worry about paying, it's already been taken care of," she just left. After she left, she called me immediately and told me everything that had happened. It was funny, but also worrying. I mean, it's not normal for your own sister to chase after your husband, is it? You never know. And it's not just that. Last week, my cousin got married. Arthur and I attended the wedding. Mercy arrived in a completely inappropriate dress, practically showing half of her body. She blatantly flirted with him when I wasn't around and even asked him to dance, although he firmly rejected her. For me, it was too much and I didn't want to let it go. I pulled her away and made it very clear to him. He laughed and called me insecure. He said to me, "Have you ever seen the men I've rejected? They're better than your husband. Why would I be interested in a man who's already with someone?" I replied, "If you've rejected better men, I don't understand what you're doing here, wasting your time with him when he's clearly not interested in you." Mom joined her in making fun of me, saying that I was crazy and that I thought I was too important. Then, with a mocking tone, she commented, "Although it would have been better if Mercy had been his wife. At least she would have helped me out financially, not like you, who don't care about your own mother." Later, I told Arthur what happened, and he just laughed it all off. The thing is, I trust my husband completely, I really do. He understands perfectly well that they are just attempts at manipulation and games, and he wants nothing to do with it. He dislikes both my mother and Mercy. He laughs at their desperation and assures me that they have no power over our relationship. But I don't want to be naive either and allow them to poison what we have built together. I want to do something to make them go away for good. I no longer have any contact with them. Except for occasional family gatherings, we hardly see each other. What else can I do to set limits for them? I'm looking into legal options, of course. I don't want suggestions about methods where things disappear and no one ever finds them. It's tempting, but also completely illegal. Update 1. I've received lots of not very legal suggestions, as well as some that are in a gray area. I've taken them as jokes, so I've laughed. But some are disturbingly disturbing, because it seems like someone has been seriously considering them. Anyway, here's what I did. Mercy's obsessive behavior reached new extremes every day. She created fake profiles just to harass Arthur. She even sent him intimate photos with her face hidden, but his neck tattoo was clearly visible. We reported all those profiles on the platform. Then I called her to confront her and tell her a few home truths. She denied everything, saying that my husband probably had a lot of female fans. She called me paranoid for blaming her for everything. I replied, "Of course, and what a coincidence that all those women have exactly the same tattoo as you, right?" Her excuse was that maybe her ex-boyfriend had used her photos to get back at her, trying to cause family problems. Her justifications were ridiculous. I knew full well that it was her, and I had to do something about it. Arthur's 35th birthday was approaching. I decided it was time to put an end to her shameless pursuit of my husband once and for all. If she wanted to play dirty, I was going to hit back with the same coin. I organized a big birthday party, inviting both families, close friends, and of course my mother's boyfriend, who was basically her financial sponsor. He was a man in his late 60s, who had been showering her with expensive gifts since they started their relationship, as well as paying for other things for her. You know, a man who supported her completely. What he didn't know was that he was just her latest human ATM. Don't be surprised if my mother is still on the dating market. She's 55, but doesn't look a day over 40. She's constantly sprucing herself up at her boyfriend's expense, all to look good for her other, less official relationships. The party was splendid, and everything was so beautiful that, at the last moment, I almost felt bad about what I was about to do, especially for Arthur's parents and siblings, who had traveled from another country. But I had to do it, for my marriage and our happiness. As expected, Mercy arrived wearing an outfit that left very little to the imagination. Wearing that dress and the photo she sent to my husband were practically the same in terms of what they showed. I invited everyone with a guest, but Mercy arrived alone, implying that she was without a partner. Only I knew that this woman was never really single. At any given moment, she had at least 4 men hanging on to her. She came in to hug Arthur and congratulate him on his birthday. Her perfume was so strong that you could smell her from far away. During dinner, she accidentally spilled water on her dress, making it even more transparent. She wanted attention, and she got it. Not Arthur's, but everyone else's. And not in the way she expected. People were looking at her for her clumsiness. She thought she looked attractive in her wet, transparent dress. If only she knew that our guests were polite people, and not the kind of people who would admire her inappropriate behavior. When dinner was over, I announced that I had prepared a special presentation for Arthur's birthday. I turned on the TV, showing photos and videos of his childhood, laughing, playing, and becoming the man I love. Everyone was delighted. He and his parents were moved by these sweet memories. Then I smiled and added, "Also, who would have imagined that this child would grow up to be so successful and charming that a woman would behave inappropriately for him?" Everyone laughed at this comment, except Mercy. My mother's face turned completely red. I continued, "Yes, even my own mother thinks I'm not good enough for him. Do you know why? Maybe because I'm not as attractive by her standards. Or maybe, just maybe, because I don't know how to empty his bank account." There were mixed reactions. Some people took it as a joke and laughed. Others turned to observe the reaction of my mother and Mercy. And others simply didn't know what to think, as if wondering, what exactly is going on here? Even so, I kept a light tone and said, "Now before we finish, I have to share something else. Lately, Arthur has been getting a lot of female attention." The screen changed, and screenshots appeared of the explicit messages and photos sent from Mercy's fake accounts. Of course, I censored the most inappropriate parts, although there were no children at the party, but I made sure that his distinctive neck tattoo was completely visible. Mercy let out a scream and ran towards the screen to try to cover it up, but that only made people notice the tattoo more. She tried to say something, but I didn't give her a chance to speak and continued, "Oh, I know what you're thinking. Is that my sister? Because the tattoo on her neck seems to indicate it. But no, according to her, it's not like that. She claims that maybe her jilted ex manipulated her photos and sent them to my husband from multiple fake accounts. After all, she considers herself too beautiful to be interested in her sister's husband. I mean, yes, look at her perfect figure, her flawless skin. Do you also think she would make a better wife for my handsome husband, as my mother says? And yes, let's not forget that she is an expert in using men's bank accounts." Mercy had to leave the room because the embarrassment on her face was making her skin turn bright red, and if you knew about her tattoo, you would understand why that did not flatter her at all. Mom couldn't leave. Her boyfriend was too interested in finding out more details. He came forward to try to stop me, making gestures that he was only joking. I ignored her and asked him to step aside. She was furious. She was trembling with rage and whispered to me, "You're humiliating us. Stop this nonsense immediately." I ignored her again and replied, "I'm just presenting the truth. The truth can never be humiliating, at least not for me, as I'm not doing anything shameful." I remember every word I said that night, because I spent hours writing the perfect speech for the occasion. It was so satisfying that I have watched that video countless times since. I showed evidence that my mother also had relationships with other men, information that her companion at the party did not like at all. Everyone was stunned. It was clear that it was no longer a joke. I was exposing the true nature of my family. Some of the guests looked at Arthur with concern. I clarified, "I am fortunate to have found a wonderful husband who respects my concerns and is always by my side unconditionally." Finally, I couldn't hold back the tears. Years of pain and abuse came to the surface. Arthur embraced me protectively. His parents joined us in a show of support. My mother's boyfriend stormed out of the room and she ran after him. Fortunately, after that the party continued as normal. Arthur's parents even thanked me because, according to them, birthday parties in England are usually quite boring. There's nothing more than cake and snacks, but never this kind of live entertainment. So despite the whole awkward scene, they found the situation very interesting, although they regretted what my mother and sister had put me through. They were outraged with them because we had told them my story in full detail. That they thought they could take financial advantage of Arthur or his family seemed totally unacceptable to them. Arthur and I felt we had won this battle. If public humiliation was the only way to definitively remove them from our lives, so be it. Several relatives contacted me to offer their support. They were horrified at the idea that my own mother was trying to destroy my marriage just for financial gain. A week later, I received a message from my mother's boyfriend. He wanted to meet with me, and I agreed to see him. He got straight to the point. After the party, your mother and your sister tried to convince me that you were mentally unstable, that you were just looking for attention, and that you were on medication. I know it's not true, but how much of what you said that night is really true? What they said didn't surprise me at all. It was completely typical coming from them. And what do you think? I asked him. He replied, I think I'd like to hear the whole story from your perspective. I took out my phone and sent him a link to my first post on this forum. I said, I'm not going to try to defend myself. You can read this and decide for yourself. Yesterday, he called me again and said, I have ended my relationship with her. You were absolutely right. Your mother sees boyfriends and husbands as nothing more than cash machines. In just a few months of being together, I have already spent thousands on her whims while she was having affairs with other men. Thank you for saving me from spending my final years with a woman like that. I replied, You're welcome. I know she'll probably read this, so just so you know, you owe me big time for saving you from that situation. Update 2. Things have become interesting. My mother's boyfriend has definitely ended his relationship with her. Normally when someone goes through a breakup, they suffer for love. But in the case of my mother and my sister, what really hurts is losing access to easy money. She lost her main source of income, and now she had to depend on Mercy to give her a share of the money she got from her self-interested relationships, as I call them. The problem was that Mercy had broken up with all her boyfriends to concentrate on winning over my husband. But it wouldn't have been difficult for her to return to her old way of life if I hadn't publicly exposed the truth. My extended family and acquaintances picked up the story from the party and spread it widely. Mercy already had a reputation for dating wealthy men and taking advantage of them financially, but the fact that my mother used her as a tool for her own ends was juicy information for everyone. Some even recorded my entire presentation and shared it. Someone uploaded it to Facebook. I saw it much later and, honestly, it didn't bother me at all. Now it has been removed. I guess someone reported it as inappropriate content. My mother and Mercy? This all turned out to be disastrous for both of them. My mother came to my house shouting, insulting me for having ruined her reputation. I found this hard to believe because I honestly don't think they had a reputation that could be ruined, at least not a positive one. My husband was at home, and he made it very clear to her that she was not welcome, without using offensive words. He told her everything she needed to hear. He even threatened to call the police if she ever showed up at our house again, uninvited. Since then, we've enjoyed a life free from the presence of these women. I sincerely hope that this peace lasts a long time. Update 3. Want to know what happened to my calculating mother? That's what you called her in the comments, right? Well, here's the story. My ex-stepfather, the man who financed many of my mother's expenses, is quite upset, to put it mildly, about how she treated him. She constantly asked him for money to renovate furniture in her house, she forced him to take her to expensive restaurants every week, and to make matters worse, she wasn't even faithful to him. So it's completely understandable that he feels some resentment towards her. That's why she contacted me to ask if I had any evidence that my mother was offering her daughter to older men in exchange for gifts, because when I told her the whole story, I didn't leave out any details. And you know what? She did have evidence. And not only evidence of the gifts Mercy received, but also my mother, because Mercy told her suitors that they had to please her future mother-in-law if they wanted to be on good terms with her. Part of the abuse I suffered included rubbing in my face his achievements, if you can call them that, by sending me photographs of the gifts and messages detailing all these arrangements. So although I had to search a lot through my old messages, I found enough evidence and provided it to this man. I also agreed to testify if necessary in a possible trial. A person of his age, and with enough financial resources to support my mother, obviously has important contacts, And sure enough, he knew someone in the prosecutor's office. So an investigation was launched against my mother with surprising speed, at least compared to how long normal legal processes usually take. The only reason the investigation progressed so quickly was because it was proven that my mother was practically offering her own daughter. It's amazing what an outraged person with money and the right contacts can achieve in a very short time. During the trial, it was proven that my mother actively helped Mercy get these men. And although there was no direct exchange of money for favors, there were numerous expensive gifts. On some occasions, these men even gave my sister money for different reasons. It wasn't exactly a case of pimping in the strict sense of the word, but it was serious enough for my mother to be sentenced to 5 years in prison. I testified about what happened in the house, about the way my mother treated me, and how she treated Mercy. I also confirmed the authenticity of the messages I received from my sister, which proved everything they did. Mercy cried and pleaded with them not to take her mother away after hearing the sentence, while my mother shouted at her to be quiet because her own text messages had put her in that situation. After that, Mercy tried to blame everyone else for what had happened to our mother, but we firmly told her to shut up. Then she tried to push us, but a court officer was present and she was arrested for contempt. They detained her for 24 hours. That night, we slept peacefully, knowing that, for at least one whole day, we would be free of them both. Even so, we applied for a restraining order against Mercy. However, for the last 2 weeks, we haven't had to use it. She must be busy trying to pay the bills at my mother's house because, if we understand work as getting money from rich men, then, well, she's effectively unemployed now. I'm thinking of taking a break from these publications, so this will be the last one for now. The only reason I might ever write again would be if my mother got out of prison and decided to join a biker gang. But for that, we'd have to wait 5 years. And who knows what will have happened to my life by then.